So we're going to look at why America expanded between 1789 and 1838. After 1789, America won the War of Independence, and British people who'd previously lived there moved out. So it became the United States of America. What was left after the British moved were 13 original colonies, and these were 13 colonies that you can see here on the map, the dark blue. They hugged the eastern coast, which was good, fine, yeah, all American now, but it wasn't enough for Washington. Washington wanted to encourage further expansion into the rest of America. So we're going to look today at exactly how America expanded between 1789 and 1838. Now, it's important to point out here that expansion means more people, more white Americans moving into new areas, not just land being added, but white people moving into new areas. That is what expansion is. So we'll start with the presidents. Two presidents to talk about. The first is Washington. Now, President Washington wanted the orange land you can see there, the Northwest and Southwest territories. He wanted to claim that land for white Americans. However, Native Americans already lived in those lands. So, in order to try and oust them from those lands, he started the Battle of Fallen Timbers, which was a bloody and violent, horrible war between Native Americans and white Americans. Native Americans had bows and arrows, but the white Americans had guns, and although they struggled to beat the natives, eventually white Americans were successful and did win the Battle of Fallen Timbers. So what we have now is Washington moving Native Americans out of that land and encouraging white people to move into it. Therefore, it was a cause of expansion because we have that movement of white Americans. The second president was President Jefferson, and he saw the potential in these lands. He set up a scheme called 640 acres for $640, which was like an incentive to encourage people to buy more land, move into new places. And it worked. It did have some impact. The richer people, the upper class, the middle class, the top of the working class, they did manage to buy these lands and start moving into them. So Jefferson's scheme of selling land cheaply was successful in causing expansion as well. The next reason for expansion is land speculators. Now, land speculators were rich men who bought a lot of land very cheaply, like the 640 acres. They would cut that land up into little bits, and then they would sell that off, the little bits off, more expensive to individual farmers. Now, a lot of farmers and working class in this time couldn't afford $640 to buy 640 acres. That was an enormous amount of money for them, about a year's wage. So instead, they ended up buying more expensive land from the land speculators. So the land speculators encouraged expansion because they were able to buy huge sections of land, meaning more movement quicker. However, it did cause conflict because the poorer white Americans were unhappy that they'd done so and that they were taking opportunity from poorer people. But it did cause expansion, which is the focus of the question. Finally, the third reason is the Louisiana Purchase. So in 1803, France owned this huge peachy orangey section here that's called the Louisiana Territory. They owned that and they had done for about 100 years. But in 1789, French had a revolution in the country that made them poor. And so they needed money and they needed it quick. And the solution was to sell the Louisiana Territory to the United States of America. So this huge pinky orangey section here is about 530 million acres, and they sold that for just $15 million, which sounds a lot, but in terms of land, really wasn't. So America got a lot of land very cheaply. Now, the expansion happens when the white Americans who live along this coast, we call them frontiersmen because they're at the front and they were generally men, frontiersmen began to move into these new areas that the Louisiana Purchase opened up. So the Louisiana Purchase was a big section of land that was bought back from the French, and frontiersmen began to move into it. When you have enough people in a territory, it becomes a state, which then makes the US expand. So, to recap very quickly, we have presidents, Washington and the Battle of Fallen Timbers, Jefferson, $640 for 640 acres. Land speculators buying up loads of land and selling it on for more money. And the Louisiana Purchase, that huge section of land being added in 1803.